So welcome everyone to I think this is our sixth, maybe seventh session. We've been doing a lot of these weekly pivot sessions, and we're so glad to have you join us today. As you know, the Brink is really passionate about helping startups and small businesses think about these interesting, challenging times. And Greg, if you don't mind advancing our slide here, we wanted to bring you a session on branding. But as you know, if you've attended any of these, and I see some repeat offenders here, folks who've come to some of the other pivots, we really wanted to give you very different topic areas and help share some of the expertise of the advisors of the Brink, and then also some expertise within our community. And so Greg is our guest speaker today, and we're super glad to have him join us. As we do this. And like I said, we're doing these every Tuesday at 10, so you're always welcome to join if a topic is particularly interesting to you. And, it's really about sharing some knowledge and engaging in conversation and answering your questions. So happy to have you. By the way, a couple logistics things. Feel free to use the chat. Let us know where you're coming from and what you're working on. Definitely helps to add to the conversation. Feel free to ask your questions through chat as well. If it's relevant to what Greg is bringing up, I'll certainly interrupt him. You can also go off mute, of course, and pipe in if you prefer to have your own voice there. You're welcome to do that as well. We're, like I said, glad to have you on board today. So we'll go to the next slide, Greg. So Gregg ONeill has spent 25 years in marketing, branding. He's a creative director, and he has worked with, a few small companies like Citibank, Merrill Lynch, Lowe's, Nationwide. So he's got a wealth of experience, and I think we're really fortunate now to have him in San Diego. He spent a lot of time, I was teasing him earlier about how New York he really is, and I appreciate that about him being an East Coaster myself, although we've got some different sports alignments here, but that's all right. I still like Greg an awful lot, and like I said, comes from the New York advertising world, but we're happy to have him here in San Diego, and having him here today, helping us think through who are we and what is the importance of branding, especially now more than ever. So without further ado, Gregg ONeill.
Thank you. First of all, I think this is awesome that the interest to hear about branding and marketing and establishing a brand is at top of mind for you guys. I think that's awesome. Yes, the only claim to fame of sports I can claim right now in New York are the Yankees. I can't claim anything else, and I got a good head start on people when it comes to baseball and Yankees. So we've got quite a bit. Founder and creative director of the ONeill Code's new agency consultancy that I'm starting here in San Diego. The ONeill Code, if you've worked with me and you know me, you know that I operate and live by a certain code. I listen more than I speak. I try to solve the problem in the most simplest way versus just for creative sake, right? I want to try to find the smart answers to smart solutions and understand the business of what I'm trying to solve for. And those come with conversations with clients. So there's a certain thing that's missing a lot of times in agencies when they have client relationships, and is that a lot of times agencies go into clients and they tout how much they know more than the client does, and they come with solutions before they even know what the problem is. So that's part of my code, which I operate on, is that I don't do that. I really want to listen and understand not only the clients, but the business, the category, and how the actual inside walls of the company works. And that helps me solve the problem as well. Here's one of the codes. Quote from Richard Branson: "We have two ears and one mouth. It's best to use them in proportion." And this is true in every sense of the word, everywhere you go in life. Listen more than you speak. So who am I? A little bit of a brief intro, but I'll kind of get right into it. Let me hide my ugly mug up here so I can see all the text. There we go. So I have a passion for telling compelling stories. I believe you can move the heart, the body will follow. With the background in art direction, I combine craft, curiosity, exploration, and a little bit of wit to bring life to ideas. I'm a problem solver first and foremost. I'm a mentor, I'm an inspirer, and I'm a fan of life and laughter. My sleeves are usually rolled up and I'm ready to dive in, usually because I'm wearing t-shirts all the time. That's my go-to attire. I enjoy the entire process from ideation to conceptualizing to creating and producing the work. I work equally as well with cross-functional teams as well as dysfunctional teams. In my business, there's a lot of dysfunction in corporations and in the advertising business. And I'll paint a little picture of it. You get into a client meeting and you're part of an agency. You have representatives from the creative department. You have representatives from the media department. You have production people. You have account people. You have data people. Everybody is trained in different disciplines all through college and through their career. You go in for surgery, you're on the operating table, you have a doctor, a nurse, anesthesiologist. They're all trained in medicine. They're all in the medical field. But our business, we have people who are journalists that are copywriters. We have fine artists who have become art directors. You have data folks that have no art background at all. So you're putting all these people together to solve the problem. That's where you'll see a lot of dysfunction because everybody has their take on how things are supposed to be solved. I love building brands. I build confidence and relationships, both at the C-suite level and at the human level. I think that's key to anything you do in marketing and advertising is connecting with people. You connect with people on a human level. As I said up front, if you move the heart, you can move the body. I've done quite a bit of work, as Lauren had mentioned. I worked on Citibank, Merrill Lynch, Lowe's, a lot of Fortune 50, Fortune 100 brands, as well as some startups and some pro bono work. I created campaigns for, as it says here, Merrill Lynch, Citibank, Postal Service, Comcast, HBO, BASF, McGladrey, Nationwide, and Lowe's. So what does that mean? I help put credit cards in wallets, stamps on envelopes, movies in living rooms, fertilizer on crops, and paint on walls. That's what I do. And I'll move on to the next slide, right? So really, this is who I am. Creative director, art director, designer, brand builder, problem solver. I'm not a leader, I'm a boss. I'm a leader, not a boss. Let me fix that. I inspire, I don't dictate. I love what I do. No ego, that's a no pun intended, it is a pun. That's really big for me. Rudeness sucks. I'm a Netflix or food lover, basketball junkie. Jordan over LeBron. Chris, I know you agree. Yankees and Giants, golfer, proud father, single dad, girl dad, Brazilian jiu-jitsu dad. Fruit doesn't belong on pizza. Ice cream belongs in my stomach. And yes, my name has 3 G's. So that's me. As you can see, you're starting to understand my brand as I'm speaking in the words and the language that I'm using, the voice that I'm not just the voice that's coming out of my mouth, but the words I've chosen to describe who I am. That's starting to build my brand as Gregg ONeill. So question that we want to solve today or have you start to think about today is, who are you, right? And I think before we can get to who you are, we have to know, what is your brand? And many of you may not have thought about this yet. Maybe you have an idea, or maybe you have it pretty well baked. And this hopefully will serve as sort of an exercise and a litmus test to understand, well, am I really saying the right things about my brand? Okay, so we'll make one thing clear. A brand is not what we tell people we are. A brand is what other people tell their friends you are, okay? It's kind of like you can't give yourself a nickname, right? I can't say I'm cool. I come across as, a jackass, basically. But if Lauren says, Gregg is a really cool guy, you might believe it. It's more authentic, it's true, it is what it is. And this can go the other way too, right? I'm an ass. That could be very self-deprecating. That could be funny, lighthearted. That can make people feel, a sense of what, he's calling himself an ass. But if someone says Gregg is such an ass, you're going to say, I don't want to work with Gregg, right? So you can't tell people who you are. You have to build the brand, demonstrate what you provide for clients and customers and the people who are interacting with your product or your company. You got to connect with them. And you don't connect with them by saying, you need me because this is what I'll do for you, or you need me because I'm great. You got to solve the problem, and then other people through word of mouth will help tell that story. Many of you probably know this guy. He's won a couple of basketball games on the college level, Coach K. We should always be concerned about our brand. Now, Coach K has a product, Duke basketball. It's always been he's not thinking about his product. He's thinking about the overall Duke brand. He's a big proponent about brand and understanding that defining the brand and understanding where you live in the world of basketball, in his case, is paramount for him getting the top elite recruits every year to come to his school when they can go to many other places like, where's Calipari at? Kentucky, where he just pays everybody. So anyway, that's Coach K. So what is a brand and what is not a brand? A product is not a brand, right? A product's a product. A brand is not a font. It's not a shape. It's not a color. It's not a logo. We look at Coca-Cola, we know, yeah, great. That's Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola owns red. Really? They really don't. You can't own a color. You can't own red. You can't own blue. Well, we'll own blue. No, you can't. Good luck, right? You want to try to own blue? This is who you're up against. Facebook, GE, Gap. So a brand is not a color. This is a color. Some people in the room may know where this is from. Might be an ice cream flavor, you don't really know. But the moment I put that logo on it, what comes to mind? Luxury, elegance, class, expensive, right? That is the feeling. So Lauren might be looking at this and being like, oh yeah, my birthday's coming up, right? So, and her husband may see this and be like, oh God, her birthday's coming up, right? There's two different visceral responses to the brand, right? This is a brand identity. It's the thumbprint, it's the fingerprint, it's the outward surface of what you are. It's the look and it's the look. It's not what's at the soul, it's not what's at the heart of the brand and the product. Okay. A brand is the promise of an experience, right? So when you have Apple computers, or you have a great experience with, you know, whatever car you drive, you say, oh, you know what, that's a great car, I'm always going to buy that car. You then become a brand advocate because your experience with that brand has been positive and it's always left you feeling like you belong with that brand. So a brand is the promise of an experience. We'll look at these three brands, car brands. I mentioned cars, right? We have Mercedes, BMW, and Volvo, right? Very distinct. They're all very nice cars, but you know what? Mercedes is luxury. No two ways about it. BMW, the ultimate driving machine, was one of their old taglines. They're built on performance. And Volvo, everybody knows, they're rooted in safety, right? These are what the brand experience is. Yes, all these cars have four wheels. They'll get you from A to B. They'll gas and electric and everything else. But what makes their brand unique is what they stand for and what they provide as an experience to customers. Mercedes, you have to know that it's a car steeped in luxury. CVS, right? We think of it as a drugstore or pharmacy, right? Well, they thought about their brand recently and they said, you know what? We're not being true to our brand. So what they did, they stopped selling tobacco. And this from the CEO, ending the sale of cigarettes and tobacco products at CVS Pharmacy is the right thing for us to do for our customers and our company to help people on their path to better health. That's a huge hit to their bottom line. I mean, cigarette sales account for a lot of revenue that come in the store, but you know what? They had to be true to themselves. Chick-fil-A is true to themselves. They're open 6 days a week, not 7. They're off on Sundays. And even though they've one more day to McDonald's and everybody else, they are still one of the top rated fast food chains in the country, working on one less day a week. So CVS is no longer in the retail space, they're in a wellness space. They define their brand as a wellness category, because what happens is people go into CVS, why? They need to get a prescription, they're not feeling well, or they have allergies, they'll get allergy medicine. They need, you know, Band-Aids, they need, you know, everything is there to help make people feel better because they're not going in there feeling that great. So they're a wellness company. Dove. We know Dove for, you know, they're on the shelf in every supermarket. Their soap, their lotion, their deodorant, they're everything right now. How do they differentiate themselves from everybody else? Well, they thought about themselves, and years ago, the whole thing about Dove was their soap contained a quarter cup of moisturizing cream. So that was their sell, like that was their 15 seconds can save you 15% message, right? You use Dove soap, you won't be dry, you have lotion in the soap, everything's great. it's all well and good. Well, you know what? That wasn't really doing it for them. They had to break out of that sea of sameness on the shelves. So they became a company based in finding the beauty in everybody. And they did so with the campaign for real beauty. They used real women and real beauty. This was counter to sees in this with Victoria's Secret, with the angels and the runway models and all the like the fashion shows and Fashion Week. This was, you know what? That's not real. These are real women, and we're going to build the campaign around that. And this is what they went with: flawed, flawless, right? So flawed is what that was the perception they were trying to change, right? There's perception in beauty where you're flawed, you're withered, or you're gray. And they turned on its head. You're not flawed, you're flawless. You're not withered, you're wonderful. You're not gray, you're gorgeous. And it was all part of the campaign for real beauty. This helped build the Dove brand. This, what you're seeing, has nothing to do with their logo, the color of the bird, or anything else. It is a position that they are taking as a leader in the health and beauty space. This was a wonderful thing. I would have asked you guys to go check this out. You search it on YouTube. It's awesome. It's easy to find. They did this campaign, part of the campaign for real beauty. They did this initiative where they had a police sketch artist come in and draw women. So first, the woman on the right would describe herself to the sketch artist. And what this revealed was most women see themselves less beautiful than they are. So what the sketch artist drew was the one on the left, as dictated by Kayla. When they asked a friend of Kayla to describe Kayla, then you get the sketch in the middle with the longer hair. He says, Kayla described by a random, she was a stranger who just met. So what people see was more accurate to the truth versus what the actual person sees themselves. Here's another one. So Florence described herself on that middle picture right there, and a random stranger described her as on the right, which looks a lot like the picture on the left from the video. It's a really interesting exercise that they did, and it was really, this won so many awards in the category when this came out. And I think this came out in 2005 or 6. Dove became the company rooted in lifting self-esteem. Everything about the campaign for real beauty was about lifting women's self-esteem. Every woman is beautiful in their own way. We don't care what shape, size, complexion you are. It is raising self-esteem. So that became their brand. So anytime I see Dove on a shelf, I know that they're making an initiative out there to really help people feel good about themselves. It's not just about cleaning their bodies and getting the stink off them with soap. It's more than that. So then we get into this. Let's do it, right? What are we going to do? Well, I don't know. Let's see. Well, these are famous last words by Gary Gilmore, who was about to be executed by firing squad in Utah in the 70s. Well, what relevance does this have to branding? Well, there's a little agency in Oregon called Wyden and Kennedy. And Dan Wyden had read this article in the front page of the newspaper. He read that this was the guy's last words, let's do it. And he said, you know what, that would be great for our client, Nike, just do it. Because Nike's brand was not an athletic brand. It wasn't a superstar brand. Yes, they had Michael Jordan, they had Bo Jackson, they had, all these great athletes, Derek Jeter and so on and so forth. But the mantra or the belief or the thought and the feeling behind just do it is, we don't care who you are. You don't have to be a world-class athlete. If you can move your feet, if you can move your body, you can go do something and do something about it. And this is a brilliant TV commercial that they shot. It was this overweight kid. He's jogging down the street in Texas or somewhere in Oklahoma or Texas. And he's not running very hard. He's kind of walking fast. We could hear him like gasping for breath, and but he's determined. And it's like, if you can do something, then go out there and do it. That's what it was about. They featured empowering women as well. Sooner or later, you start talking to yourself serious. You start taking yourself seriously. You know when you need a break. You know when you need a rest. You know what to get worked up about and what to get rid of. And you know when it's time to take care of yourself, for yourself, to do something that makes you stronger, faster, more complete. Because you know it's never too late to have a life and never too late to change one. Beautiful. Brilliant copy. I don't see a sneaker in that ad. I don't see Michael Jordan dunking. I just see somebody who has potential to do something different in their life. And that's the position that Nike took. They did a campaign for young girls. If you let me play. This was a PSA where it's like, if you let me play, I'm less likely to be in an abusive relationship. If you let me play, I'm less likely to develop, certain illnesses and stuff. So this was a brilliant campaign that really went to it. Their brand promise spanned all generations, from professional athletes to adults to children. And this is really kind of one of the first headlines. The shoe works if you do. That's basically, and again, age 16, she was junior state champ. Age 18, she won nationals. 22, she made the Olympic team. She just doesn't know it yet, right? Brilliant stuff. What makes Nike's brand their brand is their voice. It's the irreverent attitude they have. It's the no bullshit, like, this is what you can do, and we're going to help you get there. That has been their voice. They've never deviated from that. They might change their fonts. They may have different layout looks and logos, colors. They dropped the name off of the Nike logo. They dropped Just Do It off. Their voice has always stayed consistent, and that is their brand. And many people have tried to copy it, and they just can't pull it off. Nike's brand is about empowerment, right? So you have self-esteem, you have empowerment. So these are things that it's like, this is what you're providing. Nike's providing this with their brands and their products. We want our products not to just go on people's feet and keep them from getting wet in the rain. We want them to wear our shoes because we want to empower them to do more than what they're doing. So this is a brand that I personally worked on recently, airport up in San Jose. Client came to us and they said, we're in Silicon Valley. We're a great airport. We're not crowded, but people in Silicon Valley are driving 45 minutes to San Francisco and Oakland when they have to fly and go away. We want to do something that's cool, that gets us noticed, and can have people talking about us. And that's exactly what the VP of marketing said to me. I went to see him one day when we first got the business, walked around the terminal with him all day. I'm watching everybody in San Jose airport at the baggage claim. I saw maybe 600 travelers coming in from other places. Of those 600 people, I saw two people in suits. Everybody else was wearing t-shirts, board shorts, flip-flops, sneakers, Vans, everything, baseball hats. They got skateboards. It's like, San Jose is a unique place. It's not San Francisco and it's not Oakland. So that was something that was very relevant to how we were starting to approach thinking about the SFO brand. And this is sort of a write-up that we presented to the client. SJC is an awesome airport in the heart of Silicon Valley that has one goal in mind: to help people get to wherever they're going. Talk to travelers who fly in and out of SJC and they'll tell you it's the easiest airport around. The only problem, no one knew about it until now. We did a campaign, featured a tongue-in-cheek voice and simple visuals. We created a brand awareness campaign to demonstrate how superior SJC is and how it's not just another runway you can't wait to leave. SJC makes flying easy. And, we recognize that, airports aren't the destination. They're a necessary evil from getting from A to B. You talk about anyone who goes away on vacation, they never talk about their airport experience. They talk about what it was like in Tanzania on the safari, or what it was like in Utah at Deer Valley. They don't talk about, oh, a great airport experience. I got through security like that. Who cares? So SJC knows the less they talk about the airport, the better their brand is. So we knew the brand, what we're looking to do, had to reflect the people of Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley, you have 30-year-old billionaires. You could be sitting on the plane on the tarmac in San Jose going to South by Southwest, and you could be sitting next to the richest people in the world, and you don't know it. They look like your neighbor's kid. SJC could not be mistaken for San Francisco and Oakland. All right, there's 3 airports in that area. It's very much like the Northeast in New York, where you have LaGuardia, JFK, and Newark. They're all very different. And being from that area, I know the difference between all 3 of them. But someone who doesn't know the area, it's hard to decipher. So we had to make sure that SFO was not mistaken for just a regular airport that's going to get you from A to B. And we recognize people hate airports. That's just, talking to my client, I'm just saying, look, you know what? Your brand people hate, right? They like it because you get you from A to B, but the whole process of getting through it, curbside, getting your boarding pass, going through security, getting your water taken away because it might have C4 in it. Who the hell knows? But the whole experience for airports has changed greatly, and it never was a great experience, but it's gotten worse. And there's something that's true about all flyers. They're nervous. A lot of people don't like to fly. They know they have to, but I don't think people really love to fly. So we had to combat that as well. We want to encourage people to travel. And then there was this one little kicker at the end of our meeting. The client says, I got a friend who lives in Santa Clara that has written a song, and I want to play it for you because I think it'd be great for the campaign. And normally when clients say that, you're like, oh God, really? It's already starting, right? But again, as I said, I live and operate by a certain code. I said, sure, I'll listen to the song. And he played the song, and I actually liked it. It had a nice hook to it. It had a nice feeling to it. It sounded very upbeat. It sounded very light. And it was just a really, really cool song. I can see being part of the brand. So I came back to the agency. I was talking to my team, and they had worked with him before, and they know about this song because I think he had it in radio. And I said to them, hey, you know about this song? And oh God, yeah, he wants to keep pushing that song. I said, well, actually, I like it. I said, it's actually it's got a nice hook to it. And I could see it being like, Jamaica Tourism had Bob Marley's One Love as its brand song. It's like, how could you not remember that, right? You always associate that with Jamaica. This was a song that could really be known and linked to the SJC brand. So we worked with it. And there was one verse in the lyrics that says where you want to go. And he felt that married nicely to the airport. So we worked with that. And this was our feeling. It's like, we want to be a little bit irreverent, a little bit, sarcastic. And it's like, please go away, like, get out of here. And we knew that had a little too much bite. So we changed, we adapted the tagline to be go somewhere. It doesn't matter where you want to go, just go somewhere. And we're going to help get you there because SJC is the least like any other airport you've been to. So we launched with an outdoor board that said the least airporty airport, right? So right away, we're getting the sense that SJC is having fun with us. We're trying to lighten the mood of our brand, right? Silicon Valley's airport, we gave ownership to what's right in your backyard. If you live in Cupertino, why would you go to San Francisco to fly? You got an airport right in your backyard. Fog don't fly here. That was another benefit of SJC because a lot of flights get fogged out or fogged in San Francisco and Oakland, whereas SJC has very little, if any, delays for fog. So we had this one line, fog don't fly here. And we wanted to, and because the travel experience was so simple and it's easy, getting from your car to your gate to on the plane, we wanted the advertising to be just as easy and simple. That's why we show these animated stick figures. That's why you have handwritten font, because we didn't want to over design it. We didn't want to over art direct it or over complicate things. We wanted to keep it very simple that everybody could understand, they can get, and it's a little wink to them that says, you know what, SJC's got a nice little voice. They've got a nice little attitude. I like that. So we adapted that into outdoor bus shelters and banners and posters, you know, nonstop to the Empire of Bagels. And you have this image of, you know, 42nd Street, and you've got, you know, a sketch of two people in a motorcycle in a sidecar whipping through the street, right? Just adding fun to it. Directo a Mexico, right? We have a guy in a rowboat in Cabo. And binge watch the world. Seen in Arizona, Tucson, you got some guy backpacking. So that was when the client said, well, how do we, if we want to get away from just stick figures, how can we use real destinations with this stick figure idea? So this was our solution to that, was to keep it fun. Then we had some not in person, we had some in situation signage at the airport. So in the breezeways or the terminals or the jetways, as you're going from the gate to the actual plane, you'd see a series of these posters that are all tips for flying at a SJC. And we just had fun with them. The client had a lot of ad space that they wanted to fill it with. And sorry, quarantine, I got kids coming in there asking if I want breakfast. You know, we just had these little rules. The middle seat gets both armrests. Them's the rules. Avoid doing warrior one pose in the aisle. Freaks out the other passengers. That beverage cart weighs like 1,000 pounds. Watch your tootsies. If your bag is bigger than the overhead, guess what? It won't fit. You know, we're just having fun, and people were starting to post this on Instagram, and they were, you know, tagging it, and it was just gaining traction just because people were enjoying their little walk from the gate to their seat on the plane. It was easing their tension, easing their nervousness about flying. And then we went into some establishments in the San Jose area, bars and restaurants, where we gave them coasters that they can place at the bar. So you have these bars, they're double-sided. It's 5 o'clock somewhere we fly. And if you fly fast enough in the right direction, you can make happy hour last all day long. This drink would taste even better while traveling at 500 miles an hour. So you can see the voice is maintained throughout the whole brand. So at least airport, that little tongue-in-cheek wink, it's carried through on everything that we do. But I would say the brand of SJC is not the yellow and the black, and it's not their logo. It's what we're communicating, what we're promising the experience of the customers and the travelers who come through SJC.
And Greg, a comment here from one of
Yeah.
our attendees. Misty actually travels in and out of SJC pretty regularly.
Right.
Before COVID, she was traveling, 3 to 4 times a month out of that airport. She said this is just very, very consistent with, what she sees and believes about that airport. She said, was there something about Doctor Who in one of the ads?
Doctor Who, well, there's interesting. So we established the brand campaign. And then as they're redoing a lot of the terminal, and they're bringing new stores in and new establishments in and expanding, they're adding more terminals or more gates. The in-house group at SJC would take our brand campaign and they would do signage throughout the terminal as well. So they took our look and feel, they took, the handwritten font and the other stuff, but they would write their own lines. So the Doctor Who was nothing that we did, but it was great that they adapted what we did. We wish they would have come to us to write it, because some of the stuff, as we started to see it, seemed a little bit too punny. It was a little bit changing of the voice, but all in all, it was still a very well received campaign. Actually, it won awards for the airline industry advertising award or something like that. I forget the exact name of the award that it won, but it was good, and it got a lot of press, and actually helped us win the San Diego airport business down here in San Diego. What we did for them. So hope that answers the question. So where are you? So everybody that's on this call right now listening to me just go on and on about brand and these other companies and brands and products. You know, now we've got to think about, okay, well, let's look inside ourselves and who are we and what do we do? And the first biggest thing you have to think about is, what is the truest thing you can say about your business or your product? What's the truth? It's like, you know, and what's the truth that's going to get people's attention? So if I take Chiquita bananas, right? Everyone knows bananas have potassium. That's true, right? But is it exciting? No, it's not really exciting. It's exciting if you say it comes in its own wrapper, right? Because you peel it. You know, banana trees often have tarantulas, but if you buy bananas in Ralph's, a bundle of Chiquita, all the potassium, none of the tarantulas. Like, you gotta have, like, what's the true thing that you can say that's going to get people's attention, that is worth locking onto? And then, why is my business important? Are you in business because that's what everyone's doing and you want to be a part of it and you want to do something that they're doing? Or is this something that you're challenging and you're fixing? Are you making a better mousetrap, for lack of better terms? Or is this something that you recognize that there's a need for and that your business is going to help solve? If your vision and mission sounds like others in your category, I would say start over. A lot of times I've experienced this a lot, especially in banking and financial services. I've worked on Citibank, I worked on Merrill Lynch, worked on Key Bank, McGladrey, which is a corporate tax firm. And a lot of times when we're producing work and we're building their brand, they walk it down their own hallways. And they want to get consensus, because no one wants to be the one who makes the wrong decision. Right? They all want consensus, like, well, you know what? I was the only one that thought it was a good idea. All of those guys thought it was great. Right? And, you know, what happens when you walk it down the hallways, everybody reads it and they think about it, well, that's not what we're about. This is what we do. And they read their corporate pillars and they want all of that to be in an ad. But you know what? That's not engaging. That's not going to attract your customer or the people that you want. I hate saying customer, because everybody's people, right? Whether it's business to business or business to consumer, they're all human, they're all people. You got to speak to them the same way. So I like to communicate in a way that doesn't sound like it's everything else in the category, right? And perfect example, look at Geico. Geico was car insurance, right? The acronym Geico stands for Government Employee Insurance Company, all right? Government Employee Insurance Company couldn't be more vanilla. It couldn't be more boring when you're talking about car insurance. But they didn't go out there with, we're going to, you know, sign up with Geico and get the best rate in town, and you can get this coverage on your car and that coverage on your home and everything else. They went out with, it's so easy a caveman can do it. A simple call can save you 15%, right? It's a business message, but what does that mean? Simple, easy. And they built their entire brand on it being an easy process. It's the simplest thing you can do. And it went against the grain with what the category had done for years. And then find out, where's the tension, okay? Because in everything, and that kind of goes along with number two, why is my business important? It's important because you see that there's area of tension where your business is going to help solve that tension. So when you demonstrate that tension, that's where the exciting stuff happens, right? And it's like that in everything. You have, you know, go back. I hate to use this term right now because what's going on, but think about the Civil War. You've got one side and the other side. If you show, you know, one army of soldiers over here and one army of soldiers over here, and they're separated by 500 yards, it's kind of boring. They're sitting around waiting for something to happen. But the moment they start in the middle and they're clashing, that's that line of conflict. That's where the exciting stuff happens, right? So that's what gets people's attention. What's the exciting thing? What's the tension? The tension in that Nike ad with the boy jogging down the street, or I hate to say jogging, he was walking fast, was the tension is, oh my God, he's out of shape. Is he gonna pass out? He's out of asthma. Like, there's that tension. It's like, is he really breathing too heavy? Is he gonna make it? All right, because if you showed somebody who's in fantastic shape, running early morning, it's like, okay, big deal. Like they do it all the time. But the tension was in this boy getting up, lacing up his Nikes and going out for a run at 6 a.m. on a deserted dirt road in Texas. There's tension in that because you don't know what's going to happen. And that draws you in. Everything draws you in. There's the tension. You think about Dos Equis, world's most interesting guy. It's like there's tension in all of the things that all those little vignettes that he was a part of, right? There's tension in that. So now we can ask away questions and comments, and we'll see where it goes.
Great, thank you, Greg.
You
Appreciate
got
it.
it.
We do have let's see. Jeff has a question, and feel free, guys. You don't have to necessarily chat them in. You can, and I'll restate them. But if you would like to ask them directly, feel free to come off mute. So Jeff's question, Greg, is: I have a question about the audience of a brand. What is the process of tailoring a brand to an audience that is not a general consumer? For example, our company has a target customer of laboratories and lab managers.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you just figured out your target right there. If you know that there are laboratories and lab managers, all right? Brands cannot be all things to all people. Very few can pull it off. I think Nike has pulled it off because they can speak to kids and adults and professional athletes. But they don't change the way they speak, right? So identifying your key target and knowing that there are lab managers and labs, I think you've already done the work of identifying who your target is. If you want to break it down even more, I know a lot of times right now, people are getting so segmented with their marketing and their targeting with data. And it's good in a way, but I think it's gotten out of hand. Because when you slice it up so much and say, okay, this is the perfect target and this is what I need to say to them because this is what the data says. If data was always correct, and I think data is correct most of the times, but if you only rely on data, then there would be no failed advertising. Every ad would work brilliantly, but there are brands that blow it and they've used data. And data is something that is a cover your ass technique where it's like, if it goes wrong and fails, people say, well, look, don't blame me, I used the data. So in terms of targeting the labs and lab managers, I would have to know more about the business to be able to say, how would I even break it down even more? Yeah, I mean, I worked on a client, or I worked for a client, BASF, years ago, and we worked on their U.S. crop division. So they provided, or they created chemicals, a lot like Monsanto, for corporate growers. And we had to really understand each product line within that company. And there were products that reduced weeds. There were products that helped corn grow. There were products that helped soy get more yield per acre. And until I knew exactly how that product worked, I couldn't really blanket the entire agricultural community. I had to know more about the business. So I think the best way to answer that question is I would have to have more conversations to understand exactly who's involved. What is that lab management team made up of? Is it made up of 65-year-old guys in white lab coats? Is it like Silicon Valley where there's young, brilliant, chemists? I don't really know. So I'm sure that didn't answer your question, but.
Jeff, anything you wanted to follow up with? I see you there smiling away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, maybe less of, how we personally target, but more of, if you're not trying to reach the consumer, what are some of the methods, maybe like in the example you gave, of how you reach something less than just the general consumer? Like, what's the method? How do you reach those people?
It's really, you have to put yourself in their shoes. Like, you got to put yourself in the consumer's shoes and say, what am I going to get from this?
Mm-hmm.
If I were getting this, if I wanted this service or this product or something, what would I want to get from it? Right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to kind of put yourself in their shoes. You can't put yourself in the shoes of the people on your side who are in the lab, because that's, like I said, that's very much akin to my banking clients who would walk things down the hallways and talk to other bankers about, doesn't it sound great? But they're not, the advertising is not reaching the person who's going to want to open up a checking account for their 18-year-old kid who's going to college, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to speak in different terms that's going to go over kids' heads or over people's heads or whatever. So the best way that I do it is I always try to put myself in the position of the end beneficiary. Who's going to be seeing this? Who's going to be, engaging with it? Worked with the client. I mentioned RSM, they're a corporate tax firm. We had their business, and one of the conversations we had with the CMO when we first got the business was, it's like, well, how does a typical engagement work with you guys? How does a relationship work with you guys? I said, well, we really, a lot of people say that, we start every client with a blank sheet of paper. He goes, but Greg, we really do. It's like, we approach every person like we don't know anything about their industry or anything about them or their business. We want them to tell us. And we start everything with a blank sheet of paper, because when you have that understanding, good things can happen from it, right? When you feel like you're understood. So that led us down the path of, if it were the client saying it, a new tagline, you will feel powerful because we understand you. That's almost chest beating, right? From the business side. It's like, we understand everybody, so, you're going to be in great hands. Like, you're in great hands at Allstate, right? However, we took that notion and that idea of, you're going to feel successful or powerful because we understand you and we get you and get your business. We turned it on its head and took it from the consumer's point of view. And we came up with the tagline, power comes from being understood, right? So now I've put it on me. I can feel, they understand me, right? I'm not saying we understand you. I'm saying from the customer, I feel understood. So, like, take a very simple conversation, or what leads into conversations or / arguments around the house, right? A conversation goes wrong because someone's trying to say what's on their mind, they're feeling, and the person they're talking to, who they want to communicate to, says, yeah, all right, I get it, I know what you're talking about. And the person's like, no, you really don't, right? So you got to kind of shift it and get into their shoes and be like, okay, I see why they feel this way. Now I understand what I need to do, right? So it's really just shifting the focus of who you want to communicate to, and think about it from yourself. How would you want to be spoken to? How would you want to be communicated to?
Thank you.
Can I have a question?
Sure.
What we do, we provide service for remote patient monitoring, and we apply our AI algorithms to give the doctor insight about what's happening when the patient is at home. So especially for heart patients. So two questions actually. One is, when you talk with your customer, or we have this company that take care of the transitional care when the patient come back from hospital to get discharged. So if you are talking with them, I understand you are saying you have to put yourself in their shoes, and for sure we want to customize our stuff for them. But how when we should bring the discussion about if our business model, how we can match our business model with them, or we shouldn't worry about that at the beginning? They are not like a customer. Maybe they are early adopter, but they are willing to help us to mean, they are willing to use our service. So, but they are
Right.
our first customer.
So they're like they're on like a trial basis?
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of. So I'm trying to understand the question of how the business model versus what the service is providing.
Yeah, you are
help
saying
understand the
first you said you first focus on what you will bring for them.
Right.
Don't worry about the business model part first. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, especially in healthcare, you know, you have patients that are looking to you because they're, you know, they don't have the answers. They're scared. They're going through a process, and communicating to them in a very honest and authentic way is yeah. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how best to answer this.
Yeah,
Whatever
actually,
your service is, it can't be. It can't be, well, we can do this because we can monitor you. We could do this. We can send you notes. We can do this and do that. It's like, why are you doing that? Why are you monitoring?
yeah,
Right. You got to get to the why. Why are you doing it? Because you want to ease their fears. You want to make them feel comfortable. Because when people are comfortable and they ease their fears, they're more on a path for healing. Right. There's less stress. So the why in that would come to the forefront. So if you came to me and said, Greg, we have this great service and this is what it does for our patients, how would you communicate that? I would look at it as, like, for lack of better terms, it's like your patient's concierge. It's like you've got your own personal concierge service that's going to help you and guide you through the healing process. And what does that look like? What does that feel like? All right. So you've got them at your disposal. Like I would spin it that way. I would look at it as being like, you know, you just worry about healing. We've got all the other stuff covered, and you're gonna have a pipeline to us when it comes to, you know, treatment plans, recovery, and so on and so forth. And again, it's like I'm speaking this without really knowing a lot about the business. So
no, you mentioned it's very correct.
Yeah.
Your answer, actually, the intermediate people that we are dealing, or our customers, are these nurses that they have to go and talk with
Right.
patients. So we are not directly giving
Right.
it to patients. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
We've got a few more questions, Reza. Thanks for yours. I'd love to ask a question Benton asked, and Benton, feel free to type in and clarify, but he said, you know, you mentioned a couple of the best campaigns ever. What's your favorite, most powerful branding campaign, and how can a startup with a limited budget emulate those campaigns?
Well, that's a great question, and I do have an answer for that.
I gave you a softball there and then a hardball.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think you have to look at it. A lot of times when smaller companies or companies that don't have large budgets go to agencies, a lot of agencies have past work on their site, right? There has to be a clarifier with that. If you come to my site and you see the campaigns I did for Merrill Lynch or Lowe's or Nationwide Financial, and you say, okay, great, I want that work. Well, okay, well, that might be a challenge because that work had a larger budget. That work had clients that really, really let us push the boundaries to the point where we could fail, right? A lot of times people want to be too safe and they don't want to go for something that is risky. And so in terms of small budgets, it really just comes down to, I mean, I did some really, really good work for McGladrey, or RSM, which was a very small budget considering what we got out of it. It was like and I'm not going to throw this number out there saying it's small by any means, because I know this is a small business session, but you know, in the grand scheme of things, when we did this campaign for RSM, we did 3 TV commercials, we did online display ads, we ran an online contest and launched a microsite. That entire, now most times one TV commercial could cost $300,000 to $400,000 just to produce one commercial. We did that entire campaign for under $300,000. So we got a lot out of our money. But I know sometimes brands only have, you know, companies may only have $20,000 or $30,000, or maybe not even that. Maybe it is, you know what, there's skin in the game, right? I don't have a lot of budget right now, but I can give you some equity in the company. There are ways to do that. So budgets aside, the way I work, as I said, the O'Neill Code, I don't have a $10,000 idea bucket, and I don't have a $100,000 idea bucket. When you come with a problem or a project, you're going to get the best thinking, whether you're paying me $5,000 or $500,000. So that's up to the partners who you're going to partner with. Are they willing to do what it takes to you know, help you out and push this brand? We did work for Krispy Kreme when I was in North Carolina for nothing. We did it for free donuts, just because we thought we can do some cool stuff, and we just got paid in donuts. And they allowed us to use their product and their brand to do a vanity piece for the agency. Now, the first question is the hardest one, which is my all-time favorite brand campaign. Oh God, man, there's a lot. I think for the sheer brilliance and longevity of what they've been able to do, I mean, it's a no-brainer, but you got to look at Geico, because they've been doing it for 35 years. They've had multiple brand campaigns running at the same time. They had celebrity impersonators running at the same time the caveman ran, with the same time that the gecko ran, right? So a lot of times that's usually a no-no in our business. If I'm looking at print and like out of home and everything else, I look at Mini Cooper, what they did when they launched the Mini Cooper back in 2000. Brilliant. They made it an inclusive, their voice for Mini Cooper was inclusive. It was let's put the middle finger away. Let's sip, not guzzle. Let's hit the open road. It was all about inclusive and having fun and everything else. And they made it like a toy car. That was a brilliant campaign. I think that I always mention to people when I'm speaking with, you know, creative teams and everything else, back after 9/11 in New York, Citibank ran a campaign, which was an outdoor campaign. And they changed their brand to Live Richly. Live Richly is something that a bank would never say, right? Banks are usually about percentage rates, credit card offers, checking accounts, everything else. But what I saw when I was leaving the office one day in New York, I saw this big outdoor board wrapped around the building. And it was just a white billboard with blue text on it. And it had the logo in Live Richly. And the first headline I saw, this is right after 9/11, it said, "Just remember, the people you work for are waiting for you at home right now." And I was like, shit, that's brilliant, man. That is like, they have just tapped into me, right? Because the world started to become more about like understanding people and being nicer to people and everything else. So it's like, they had you recalibrate what your thought on money and banking was. There are other ones. It's like, you know, yeah, you can save, you know, $50 a month or $50 a week if you don't buy your coffee every morning, but boy, you'd be grumpy, right? They really tapped into the human nature of what the bank provides, right? And you go in there and it's like, wow, that's right. I know it's just advertising, but from that advertising, I'm thinking that's a bank that's finally getting onto the human level of what people are experiencing, what their fears are. So I named 3, you wanted 1. Sorry, I'm bad at math.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Greg.
Greg, we've got like 2 more questions. We're at the top of the hour, so we've been losing some people, but
that's fine.
love if you don't mind just staying on to
I'm
answer
good.
these
I'm good.
couple questions. Thank you.
I'm here for you guys, man.
Cool. Kyle, are you still on? Do you want to ask your question?
I am. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah,
I've got a
no
couple of
problem, Kyle.
quarantine kids here myself.
Right.
Yeah, so the question may be a little general, but I'm curious about if you're creating an economy brand, like for an economy product, and trying to present it and position it as that, you know, finding the balance between, you know, trying to make it look professional but not cheap.
Yep.
You don't want to make it look like a premium brand, because then that's going to, you know, the people who you're trying to reach are trying to, you look for an affordable product, but if it looks premium, they're obviously not going to buy it. So I don't know if you could just speak in some generalities towards that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. First of all, I wouldn't call it affordable or not premium. I think you always want what you do to feel like it is the best thing or it's a better solution. So to say it's not premium, and because I think you're talking about, you might be afraid of like a bait and switch, like it's like how do you have something that's premium at a low cost, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, sorry.
Or did I miss that whole question?
Noise.
That's okay.
Yeah, so it's I would say you take like something like a Harbor Freight versus like a Home Depot or something.
Right.
If you're familiar with Harbor Freight. So, you know, Harbor Freight is extraordinarily effective at sort of reaching that audience who's looking for an economy product.
Right.
You know, their stuff isn't glitzy and glamorous.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so when I say premium, I guess I mean more of
Restoration hardware.
yeah, right.
Right.
So, you know, branding those two products so that, you know, you look like a professional outfit, yet it's an economy product that appeals to an audience that's looking for something more economical, more affordable,
Right.
Without, does that make sense?
Yeah. And you're not the first to try to figure this out. Years ago, I met with an agency in New York, and they had Mercedes-Benz as a client. And this was a president of an agency I was interviewing with, and he hated everything I did. He didn't like my portfolio. He's like, don't worry. He goes, I've never seen a portfolio I liked anyway. So he was kind of arrogant, but you know, whatever. That's the way he rolled. But he taught me something really interesting. He said, you know, the work you do has to work. It's got to work. It just can't be creative. And he says, you have a campaign in your portfolio for a health club. It looks very high end, looks very this, that, and the other. It's great. Great headlines, great visuals. It's laid out very nicely. He goes, but you know what? I already belong to a health club, and this is not going to get me to leave there and come to yours. He goes, you got to give me something else. And he says, we have Mercedes-Benz as a client. And he says, we have a challenge right now because Mercedes-Benz is coming out with a car to compete with the 3 Series BMW, which is an affordable car. But what do you know about Mercedes? It's luxury. So how do you position Mercedes, a luxury brand, at an affordable price? People start to all of a sudden diminish it. Or it's not going to be leather, it's going to be vinyl seats, right? And you start to do that. I would never, just my personal point of view, I would never tout something as economy, because if it looks, it does its job and it looks like it's an established company, who cares who cares if it's affordable? I mean, I think that's even a great thing. If I can get something that looks great and it's affordable, then that's fantastic. I wouldn't overthink it. I would just, whatever your product is, make it look as polished and as professional and as effective as it can be. And the marketing and advertising should match that. And if people say, you know what, that, like, you know, people love Old Navy, right? Because it's affordable. They don't say, hey, Old Navy, come to Old Navy because we're the knockoff cheap Banana Republic, right? No, it's Old Navy, right? There's a target. No, there's a demographic for Old Navy, just like there's a demographic for Gap and Banana Republic. They're all the same company, but they don't sit there and say that, Old Navy, our shirts aren't really that great. They're going to twist after 2 washes and they're only $5. Come in and get a bunch. They're just like, no, we've got great styles. We've got great this, great that. And it's like they actually make themselves a competitor to Gap and Banana Republic, even though they're the same company.
Yeah,
So
that's a great example.
Yeah, I would say the impression you want to leave with everybody is you solved the problem that needed to be solved, and this is the best solution. And don't worry about what it should cost them.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Great question. Great for us all to be thinking about. I'll give us one final question from Petros. Before I do want to mention, and Benton's on the call. Thanks for reminding us, Benton, in the chat. We have a really cool session coming for you next week too. That is all about shifting investments in the pandemic. So from angels to unicorns. So please tune in next week too. So the final question is actually, Petros is launching a brand in the pet space. Okay. And particularly with a solution for pet waste. And he was wondering, like, does he need to take on the voice of the pet? And I don't know if you've worked on any pet brands before, but just maybe some commentary around kind of how to take on the voice of the consumer when the the consumer is, and I always say it's the pet parent that you're really marketing to, not the pet themselves. But maybe how do you play in with the fact that you do have the pet as the customer?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's actually a pretty cool thing, because if there's one thing we know, people love their pets more than they love their spouses, brothers, sisters, and family members, right? They'll do anything for for their pets. Yeah, I mean, that could be an area to look at, is like, what do the products that you provide, how does it benefit the actual pet, not the pet owner? And I think having the voice of the pet could be really good. It's been done before, but everything's been done before, and there are different ways to do it. And as long as you can tap into the mindset and the psyche of what a pet might sound like, and what they're complaining about all day. Like, it is a dog's life. They sit around, they eat, someone walks them, someone picks up their crap, and they don't have to do anything. It really is the life. I wish, I'm kind of depressed now, but but what does that voice sound like? It's like, remember that movie? It's an old movie, Look Who's Talking, with Bruce Willis, and there's the baby that talked. It's like, that movie was so brilliant because the voice of the baby and what the baby thought was so funny and wasn't overly scripted. They had fun with it, and they kept it real, and that's what gave it its charm and gave it its likability and the popularity. So, I think the pet space, having it come from the voice of the pet, could be really cool. I would definitely explore that as well. And pet owners, like I said, they are so keen on their pets and their pets' wellness and everything else that they'll do anything. They'll do anything. Like, they will spend. I remember I had a buddy of mine, his dog had gotten hit by a car, and his kids were crying, and his wife was crying. So, you got to save the dog. And he took it to the hospital, and he unloaded his 401k and spent $20,000 and saved the dog in surgery. He's like, I'll never do that again. Right? He's like, but people will do that. And some people are like, pets are pets, and that's what we're gonna do. It's like, you'll find more people that will empty the bank for their pets.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool though. I like that.
Any other final questions or comments for anybody? Well, thank you again very much, Gregg.
Yeah,
appreciate the time today. And for those of you attending who would like to hear this again, we'll be posting it on our YouTube channel, and hopefully see you next week at Benton's session. Thanks again for being here, and thanks so much, Gregg. Great stuff.
Thank you all.
probe
Appreciate
into your mind today. It was cool.
Yeah, no worries. I didn't offend anybody with my mind. Hope no one got lost and scared in there.